everything you are doing here is legitimized by what is going on in the country of my birth called Ghana, which actually is supposed to be, which actually is supposed to be an ex-colony of Britain that Britain misruled as the Gold Coast. But actually there is the lie that Britain has left. No, the British Empire is still very much alive, and you know, when we occupy bridges like this here, the symbolic meaning is to transform the kind of bridges that the British ruling class has been building between this island and the rest of the world. You know, bridges that have been built with skeletons from African ancestors that have been turned into chattel slavery. Many are in the oceans. When we occupy these bridges, we are symbolically transforming them into our bridges for people's power to change this kind of relationship that exists. Because since the era of colonization, Ghana as a Gold Coast has been a place for the extraction of gold at huge cost to our people. That history has now given us a presence of climate emergency, because not only the extraction of gold has left environmental devastation in our gold producing areas like Obuasi, we also have deforestation, and most of our forests are gone. You know, we have health problems, and many of our people are suffering from ecocide. Ecocide that has been imposed on us, a process of extinction for hundreds of years. Hundreds of years, our people have met this extinction process with resistance. And there have been stages where your ancestors also have risen with us in resistance. That is a history you are not taught in your schools, right? It took many people like you to rise to put an end to the chattel enslavement of African people through these kinds of rebellion. It's taken many people like you, to put an end to direct colonial domination. Now is the turn of your generation, and you are rising up in the footsteps of many of the best of Britain that they don't teach you about. The likes of Sylvia Pankhurst, the like of who were at the front ranks of resistance. Go into your history, learn about the William Davidson, learn about Okugwano, learn about Equiano, and you will know that the best testimony, the best respect you can pay is to replace these criminals they hold up as your ancestors with the very best they don't speak about. And so this kind of protest is actually doing honor to yourselves, doing honor to the generations that they refuse to tell you the truth about. And so when Extinction Rebellion challenges us with having to demand the truth and act for the truth and rebel for life, we are working to uphold the best traditions that together as African people, together as the grassroots from Europe, together we have created new chapters of history, and will continue in those traditions. I have come to this campaign from a campaign rooted in our African heritage community called Stop the MAANGAMIZI, We Charge Genocide, Ecocide. And that campaign is now in affinity with Extinction Rebellion to globalize Extinction Rebellion and to shut down crime scenes of ecocide throughout Africa. And the day we shut those crime scenes of ecocide in Africa, global capitalism will fall and you will rise. Thank you very much.
Greetings, greetings, warm greetings to all of you. I am honoured and I am proud to be standing in solidarity with you today. I speak as an African woman whose parents were born in the Caribbean, and I stand here as a representative of many of my foreparents who were never meant to survive because of the extinction and the genocide and the imposed ecocide that we faced as a result of the despoilation of Africa and us being trafficked to the Caribbean. And then many of us now, through reasons of economics, coming to Europe only to face a hostile environment. We were lied to, and now the impact of climate change on that region where my people hails from is actually a catastrophe, an emergency. So I represent the Stop the MAANGAMIZI, We Charge Genocide, Ecocide campaign. And this is an African-led campaign that is about reparations, repairing the damage. Now the damage cannot just be repaired by throwing money at the problem. We face an existential threat and we need guarantees of repetition. We need to have freedom from extinction, and so reparations. But before we can repair the harm, we have to stop the harm, and we have to ensure that our peoples all over the planet rebel and rise up against unjust rule to assert our future. Thank you. Activist, an African reparations activist, and that might seem strange, but actually we have a campaign called Stop the MAANGAMIZI, We Charge Genocide, Ecocide, and MAANGAMIZI is a key Swahili term for African Holocaust. And so the fact is, the results of the dispossession, despoilation of the African motherland, the taking of Africa's children, trafficking her into the so-called Americas, into the Caribbean, left environmental devastation. And in fact, we've gone through different phases of extinction ourselves. The fact that I'm still here, the fact that I don't even know who I am. I'm carrying still part of a slave master's name. But so this genocide is something that African people are still facing. And we feel it's really important that we have a reparations perspective around a climate emergency in terms of how do we not only stop the harm, but how do we repair the damage that is being done, not only to ourselves, but to future generations. Right. So that's where really we come in, because we see ourselves as the Stop the MAANGAMIZI campaign as an affinity group and campaign to Extinction Rebellion, because our campaign itself is rebelling against the extinction of African people. Don't think that because I'm physically standing here, I'm just one of the few that was never meant to survive, but many more were killed and died as a result of this ecocide, this despoilation and this genocide that continues today.
One of the issues I think with climate change is people see it as just a planetary issue or an environmental issue, but as you're pointing out, it's a human issue, right?
It's a human issue. I mean, for us, there's a direct correlation between what happens to the land, what happens to the planet, the environment, and what happens to the people that live on the earth.
Right.
And whereas there is a tendency in some narratives to see, if you like, human beings as if you like, a threat,
sure.
A stain. And so going back to African and Aboriginal and Indigenous perspectives, no, because our traditional ways have always recognised harmony and equity between species, have lived in harmony with our environment. And part of what enslavement and colonization and genocide does is it removes people from their natural way of lives, and it turns us into subhuman peoples from which we are still rebelling and resisting. And so it's important to hear the voices of the global south, African people, Aboriginal people, Indigenous peoples all around the world who do have the answers, and we are very encouraged and inspired by Extinction Rebellion, because we do believe that collectively that we do have some similar goals in terms of the existential threat that we are facing, and that we can and we must change the world, and we must prevent the criminal class, the criminal capitalist class, that's even in African and Caribbean governments. It's not just about European governments, it's also how we are maintaining that in terms of our ruling elites. And we have to look at where the alternatives are coming from the below, from the grassroots who are rising up. So yes, rise up in rebellion.
Rise up in rebellion, beautifully said.
Okay,
thank you so
thank
much.
you.
Thank you, Esther.
Because I recognize the urgency of these times. We have been trying through the Stop the MAANGAMIZI, We Charge Genocide, Ecocide campaign to educate and mobilize our people towards particularly this kind of rebellion. And thank God, it's coming to meet us. So we can actually unify our efforts to ensure that business as usual cannot go on. It's just not going to happen. And we are in a position to rally the forces of resistance that already exist all over the world, to harmonize these efforts for this final push against those who are peddling death through global capitalism and bring it down on it, so that life will spring forth once again. This is the only hope humanity has of making sense to itself. This is the only hope we have of reawakening belief in our own ability as human beings to take our destiny into our own hands and reconnect with the rest of nature and open a new chapter entirely, in human history that many generations to come will be grateful to us for, because we recognize the real threats to the entire planet. We recognize the fact that there is mass slaughter of all forms of life today. We recognize that we live in an era of criminality of gigantic proportions to the extent that the planet is being killed. And this is premeditated murder. There are people who sit, plot, plan to destroy life on earth. And this is the moment that we have to rise up to the challenge, knowing that we can, and we truly can, because if we can take this bridge, there are many more bridges we can take to transform the bridges of destruction that put peoples around the world against each other into bridges of connecting our struggles to clinch a victory that will be one of the most historic in the annals of the world.
Amazing, beautifully said. I totally agree. Beautiful way to put it. Thank you so much. I think you kind of covered every question we had. Thank you for being here today. It's a real pleasure. Thank you, sir. Enjoy your day. Great. Okay. Beautifully said.
Bring to you the memory of Ella Edu Kisi Debra, a school child born of Ghanaian parents, who died of air pollution in London. Her parents thought this would be a better place, not to know that this is also one of the crime scenes of ecocide. Crime scene of ecocide that peddles death to countries like Ghana, from where I come. And I'm encouraged in speaking to you by the endorsement of Extinction Rebellion by our traditional chiefs organized in the Global African Family Reunion International Council. Chiefs like Togbe Ajakupo the 7th, who is counting on you to support his community in Abatime to defend the forests against those who want to cut them down. Chiefs like Nana Kobinan Ketia the Fifth, who has been campaigning long against offshore drilling of oil, which is polluting the sea and wrecking the lives of this community in Escado. Chiefs like Lumo Akwamensa III, the chief traditional priest of the Gan people of the capital city of Ghana, Accra, where the pollution of the seas is destroying the local livelihoods of his community. And it is these things that legitimize extinction rebellion all over the world. We must understand the importance of this rebellion against the crisis we face. We must understand the responsibility we have to build our people's power from below that connects communities of resistance all over the world to put a stop to this madness. This madness of criminality, which nobody will forgive us if we allow the planet to continue to be killed to total extinction of all the life forms, including human life, that we are seeing. So I'm here to bear witness to the legitimacy of this resistance. I'm here to encourage us to take confidence in our own ability to be the change. We are the only change that can make things turn around. We are the only change upon which future generations can depend for the ability to thrive in the times to come. But most importantly, as an African, I would like to end on this one with reverence to our ancestors, that we are called upon to stand on the shoulders of our ancestors from all communities, those who stood together in this country in the abolitionist movement against chattel and slavery, a system that peddled death to so many of us and people believe will never end. It took people acting in this very country to put a stop to it. The colonial empire was put a stop to by us coming together to say, no, we will not let the crimes of colonialism continue. Today, it is possible for us to repair, to stop and repair the damage of ecocide. It is just about time that if we acted with determination, with tenacity, with perseverance, if we connect our communities of resistance throughout the world, this is a fight we shall win. Thank you.
As an activist in the international social movement for African reparations in general and a representative of the Stop the MAANGAMIZI, we charge genocide ecocide campaign, which MAANGAMIZI basically is a key Swahili term for African holocaust. Now we are here today standing in solidarity with Extinction Rebellion, because for us, as African peoples that were taken from our motherland and trafficked to the Caribbean, we have seen much devastation and much extinction. In fact, many of us were not even meant to survive. But we live to tell the tale. And to share our knowledge and experience of resilience. Not only must we rebel, but we must seek to transform and build the new. And so we see ourselves as an affinity group and solidarity campaign
Extinction Rebellion movement because of our common interest in stopping the harm of from climate emergency, ending ecocide, and actually transforming not only self and community and planet, but the whole cosmos. Now for us, that is about repairing the damage, which is reparations. So what we are bringing to the table is the importance of having a reparatory justice approach to stopping the climate emergency. We must not just get rid of the old, but we must reconstruct, renew, and ensure that we correct the mistakes of the past. Essentially, reparatory justice is actually essential to planetary justice, to climate justice, to environmental justice. And we as African people, in solidarity with Aboriginal people, in solidarity with indigenous peoples of the earth, know that part of that solution requires decolonization and dismantling of the structures of oppression, of capitalism, whole nation, whole continent. That means today we are facing an existential threat to the whole of humanity. So we have some of the answers way forward, and for us it must also include a restoration of our sovereignty, of our centrality as being protectors of our Mother Earth. I want to encourage you